Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Dad's Perspective Podcast, episode, I forgot to ask, seven or six?
Seven. I think it's seven.
Seven, man, and we are back. We had a little vacation last week. Story was off gallivanting, having a great time. I was here, having a great time, and, well, ultimately, I seem really chipper, but the last 48 hours, man, were terrible. I just want to catch story up and catch y'all up, man. I almost lost my dog. I know we're here to talk about kids, but my German Shepherd Scarlett of 13 years is my kid. Okay, there's not just human babies, there's animal babies, man. And for people who have dogs and stuff and kids, I can tell you, it's not that different from each other. One is much more powerful because I made him, but when it comes to my dogs, man, if something's wrong, there's something wrong with me. Scarlett has been my military dog. She has gotten me through everything in the last 12 years, you know? And on not last night, but the night before, right, about 2 hours after dinner, her stomach inverted. So essentially, it went from being in the right position, and then it twists over, and the opening and the closing of the stomach get sealed off, including all the blood vessels and stuff. So what happens is as the stomach lining is flipped, the stomach itself starts to fill up with gas, and then it closes off blood vessels. And then what happens to organs and muscles and everything when the blood vessels close? They die, man. And that is what is the death sentence, is the longer the stomach is flipped, the more cell death you have, the more toxins get released after you fix it. And ultimately, the body just can't take it. It's a big deal, man. And luckily for us, though, like I said, about 2 hours after dinner happened, I just noticed something was wrong. Like, she was kind of pacing, and she was short to, only lay down for a few seconds. And she wouldn't take, we have these lick mats that she can just kind of lick or whatever. And she wouldn't take that. And I just knew something was wrong. So I went up and I kind of felt her, and her stomach was just rock solid, man. It was rock solid. And it just threw me into holy shit, something's wrong. But also having my own mental demons, it was like, dude, it was bad. Needless to say, I was remiss. But ultimately, through that chaos, we're making some calls and make the decision, hey, we're going to the vet. And so we get to the vet within, probably 30 minutes of finding out something was wrong. And sure enough, they give an x-ray of her, and they found out that her stomach was flipped over, man. And, worst case scenario. There's very few other things I thought it could be. Like, internal bleeding was the second option in my mind, but less likely. And sure enough, came back GDV, which is gastrinal something. And stomach was flipped, and she had to go into emergency surgery. So within 0 to 3 hours, my dog went from 100% fine to emergency surgery, 50% chance if she'll make it. And now, thank God, or whomever, she ended up being, everything worked out. So they went in, they decompressed the stomach by putting in a catheter needle, and it, shrinks, lets the air out, and then shrinks the stomach back down to help. So that's step one. Well, step two is scar from here to here all the way down her stomach. They open her up, and they go in, and they manually rotate back the stomach. And if there's any dead muscle or dead tissue, they get rid of it, right? Because that's where the toxins are. Well, here's the greatest outcome that ever could have happened, man. So they decompressed. They go in there with the surgery, and the stomach had already corrected itself to normal. So when they went in there, the only thing they saw was irritation to where the stomach opening and closing had flipped and rotated. Literally, man, best possible outcome. So she was on meds. For 24 hours, she was there for observations and recovery from the surgery, and we just got to take her home last night at 6 o'clock, dude. And it's just been, back to having her home. And I can tell you, it made me think a lot about the first time he gets sick or hurt, because ultimately, holy shit, that was that much with Scarlett, which I love unconditionally, but I didn't make her. So the first time I got to take him to the doctor, like, what is that going to be like, you know?
It's that times 10. Because like, I mean, everybody's like, oh, the animals are my babies and stuff, and I'm always like, yeah, but it's not the same. Or it's like, no, it's the same, and I'm like, listen, I'm all for animals. I get that people are like, these are my babies, stuff like that. Get it, 100%. But I'm telling you flat out, there's a difference between an animal and having a little human that you created. Like, there's a much more deeper bond. And I remember the first time that Emma ever got like super, super sick, that like she was in the hospital and went to the ICU. Dude, I've nearly died a few times from dumb shit that I've done. And like, I was scared at that point, thinking like, nothing will ever come close to this. I
Yeah.
was more terrified in those couple of days than I had been in my entire life. Like, I mean, even having pets, like, when they would get sick and stuff, like, it was scary. And like, I'm like, please don't like have anything wrong. But like, your kid is on a whole different level. And like, it's a scary time. And,
So
like,
what was Emma's first, what happened?
So the first
The
super
big scare,
serious
yeah.
illness her first real big scare.
Yeah, what was the
first
scare?
time
Like,
she fell down the stairs. That was the first like major scare. But like,
and we had talked about
the
that
big
before.
one, yeah, the big one that really, really scared me was when she was in the hospital. Was that her mom and her parents go to this lake every year for vacation, and I don't remember what the name of it is.
That's all
I'm
right.
sure I'm sure she's watching. I'm sure she'll probably comment, maybe.
It's fine.
But
Took her to a lake.
it's some kind of waterborne illness that can happen sometimes, like lakes and stuff like that. And if you ingest it, it can make you really sick. And she just wasn't eating. She had really bad diarrhea. She had a really bad fever. She was like really messed up, and we took her to the hospital, and we were in there, like, I was at work. I'm like, look, if it's serious, give me a call. I'm like, I'll leave work, come in. And after a little bit, she's like, hey, like, they're taking her to ICU, like, it's really bad. They're gonna keep her and stuff like that.
Oh my god.
So I ended up going, and they're checking in on her like every day. But
at
like,
the
they were trying to say, they're just trying to say like, oh, she's just sick, like, it's fine, like, there's nothing major.
But she's hospitalized.
So then they tried saying it was just basically like, if I remember correctly, like some kind of like stomach virus or something like that, and that she was
low or high,
glycemic or something like that.
Hypo is low, hyper is high.
I think it's hypo.
Okay.
Glycemic. And her mom's like, no, like, that's not, like, she was fine up until like the other day. Like, this isn't. So like, she fought. And finally, like, they started doing more and found out that there was this like weird illness and stuff like that.
No kidding.
And they gave her medicine and stuff. But like, I think I saw pictures on my phone. But like, it's sad because she's little, but she's to the point where like she can sit up and stuff like that, and you make slight noises.
Oh, so she was very young.
Oh yeah, she was very, very young.
Very young. Wow.
And like, I don't even know if she was walking at that point, but I know she was sitting up on her own. Kind of looking around, like, playing a little bit and stuff like that. But like, she was in this crib because like when she would sleep, like, so she wouldn't fall. But like, it just basically looked like a prison, man. Like, because the bars were so high, and like we couldn't. And like,
gosh, all the equipment.
Like touch her through like the slots, and like sometimes could like bring them down and bring her out and stuff like that, to like put her in like a little thing and push her around, so like she wasn't. But like, her little head was like in this like little like white netting thing to like monitor her like brainwaves and stuff like that. And dude, it was the most sad. And like, even looking back now when I see it, I'm like, I don't think there has been a time since then that I was ever that scared in my life. And like, I still had to go to work and deal with that stuff on top of her being there, and like trying to be there for her mom and like the kiddo, and like just deal with my own crap. And like, I gotta say, she was super strong for being able to be at the hospital and deal with that kind of like on her own while I had to work. Like, it sucked, man. Like, it is one of the most difficult things I think in my life that I've ever faced, is just seeing my kid and being literally completely helpless, because like, I can't do anything. Like, at least she has a cold or something, like, I can give you medicine, like, I'm just looking at you and I'm like, I can't do anything. So
your life is in the hands of all these other people in the hospital. Oh wow. So how long did that all take?
I think she was in the hospital, I want to say a week.
God, jeez.
But yeah, it was pretty bad, man. Like,
so did you like sleep at the hospital? Or no, you said you had to work.
So
yeah, how'd that?
I pretty much, like, I would stay there as long as I could, and then I'd come home to get a little bit of sleep and then go into work, and then I would work, and then as soon as I was out of work, I would literally drive straight back
Man.
and just be there. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was pretty rough. Like it was a very long week, and then like giving her the medicine. Like you should fix everything. Like now that we really know what it is, you need to keep an
Mm-hmm.
eye on this just in case because of their blood sugar and stuff like that. And then after like an extra day of her being in there after they started the treatment, seeing it was working, like, hey, go home and just keep on top of this. And like
Wow.
she was good after that. But yeah, that was probably the scariest experience I'd say I'd ever had with her this entire time.
Did it
Um,
change anything about how you did stuff moving forward? Like, were you gun shy or
um,
was it just something that happened?
no, like I mean, it happens. I mean, you can't really control it. And like the next year they went like a little bit more careful to make sure like she wasn't drinking the water and stuff like that the best that you
Makes
could, you
sense.
know.
Yeah.
But other than that, like it doesn't really change much. Like we just keep an eye on her and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And
Shit
I think
happens.
it made me a little bit more scared, I think, in the long run, because like, yeah, this is my only kid. Probably I'm not gonna say probably. 99.9% sure the only one I'm ever gonna have. But like, it was scary, like feeling so helpless, not being able to do anything, and knowing that like this could happen again down the road, and it just terrifies me because as she gets older, like she can talk now and stuff, and like when she's sick, she can tell me and things. But like obviously in my situation, like I don't have medical rights. So like if she gets sick, I have to get a hold of her mom and
Oh,
wait for her
wow.
mom to respond. It was an emergency, like a true emergency. I can take care of it and like I won't get in trouble. But like it was something that like
Yeah.
I feel like is an emergency and it's not. Like I could get in
You have
trouble,
to
which I most
justify.
likely would. Yeah.
Wow.
And like then I have to take her to the doctor that like her mom wants her to go to or the hospital and like everything has to be run through her and like
Ooh.
it sucks, man, because like there's times when like she could be like super sick and it's like what do you want to do and like I just gotta go with it and like it sucks because if it's like days that could go by if she's with me and I'm just giving her like regular cough medicine and stuff like that and then it goes like well actually she need an antibiotic or something. It's like well if I could have just taken her down the road 5 minutes and just done a quick checkup,
Oh.
yeah, it was a common cold, yeah, it sucks, but hey, I'd rather be safe than sorry, like instead of her suffering extra days.
So
But I
you
mean
can't make doctor's appointments?
no, not that no,
Whoa. That's crazy.
it
Like
all
you
has
have
to
to
go through her
say,
mom.
hey, you have to, like, this happened.
So
You
basically,
got to
from
make an
now
appointment.
this now, maybe I can. I'm not 100% sure on
Okay.
everything, but from my understanding, basically her mom makes all of the medical decisions. So like, if
I wonder how
I
that's
want to make a
defined.
doctor's appointment, I believe I have to ask her mom and say,
Yeah.
"Hey, Emma's sick. Can we make a doctor's appointment?" And she'll be like, "Yeah, let me make the phone call." And then like we go there, and then either I have to call her on the phone and she'll talk to the doctor and stuff and make all the medical decisions like yes, give her shots
She
or
makes
yes,
the
she can do this
decisions.
or yeah.
Yeah.
Like I can't say yes, give her the shots. Yes, put her on
Gotcha.
this medication. Like
So you can't do
so if
anything invasive. Anything that has to have an authorization, you cannot
yep,
authorize. Wow.
nope,
And I've heard of medical rights and stuff too being a part of,
yep.
co-parenting and
Now
whatnot. Oh, that's
if
got to be tough.
if like she fell off her bike and like her arms twisted and mangled in a certain direction, like
Yeah.
and I were to like, yo, she's got to go to the hospital, like no ifs, ands, or buts. And I
Yeah.
jump in the car and take her to the nearest hospital and then call her mom when we're there. Like, yeah, she might get upset and angry and stuff like that. But like, if she's like, hey, I'm taking you to court because you're not following the medical rights things, the court would be like, that was a true emergency.
Well,
Like, you needed to
exactly.
get her. Like, her
Ah,
arm was clearly busted. But like, it was something that like I think it's an emergency, and I were to take her, and it turns out it wasn't. And then like she'd want to take me to court. Like, it would be hit or miss of like, well, did he truly think it was truly emergency or not? And then like, if it's not, then
well,
I could be held
yeah.
in contempt and have to pay a fine.
Like, where's the victim?
And so
That's crazy.
it's difficult, but
Yeah.
like
Well, you'd figure out how
that's
to
why
navigate it.
yeah, and that's why like I as I've gotten more through this process, like I asked my lawyer more questions because the lawyer I had before, like he just was like, whatever, I you know, kind of on my own. So for asking questions, it was very difficult.
Yeah.
So I was kind of in limbo and having to Google, and like obviously every lawyer has a
Oh,
different
God.
interpretation of like what
Yep.
this means and what that means. And so like I always say, like if you're going through divorce and like you're not sure of something, ask questions. There,
You gotta.
it's important because if not, you will get yourself in hot water. I did that at one point when I had medical rights.
Oh,
I kept
you
the
had
kiddo
it at
with
one
me.
point?
Oh yeah, yeah. I had it.
Interesting.
I had Emma. majority of the time for the first, like, I want to say probably 3 years.
Post separation.
And then,
right? Like post separation, you had her for the first 3 majority time. Is that
for almost 3 years? Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And then eventually it flopped to her,
Okay.
having her more.
What caused that to flop?
Basically a piece of shit lawyer that I had.
Oh, so court. So did she say I want more, and then you guys went to court, and then it's flipped after that?
No, we were fighting over certain things, and basically we had a mediator who's like, look, this is a situation. We think she should have her more due to certain things, and because my lawyer didn't file certain paperwork, like you got all sorts of screwed up, and then like I was like, whatever. Like, it is what it is. As long as the kiddo's happy, I don't really care.
So the new arrangement, now she has majority of time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Like, I ended up keeping her because she was super sick, and I was like, look, like, I need from you, doctor, like, a note saying, like, you can go back to mom at this point. And my thing is, like, if something comes up where, like, I go on vacation, and it's in the other parents', time frame of, like, when they're supposed to have the kiddo, or, like, they're sick and the kiddo stays with me, whatever, I was like, look, like, you can have some of my time, because it's only fair. Like, it's not your fault the kiddo got sick, and, like, I'm like, look, it's about a 20, 25-minute drive to where we meet, and then that's another like 20, 25 minutes then from where we meet to go back to where she was living. So like all in all, like that's an hour in a car when the kiddo is really sick. She had like a fever of like 101, 102.
Oh damn.
Like stomach bug kind of like flu kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, look, I'm gonna keep her, and then like when she's better, like you'll get her back to stay. She should be good. That's when the doctor said she should be fine. And then take her from there till this day. I'll give some of my time so that way you have her.
So trying to be fair.
Yeah. And that wasn't a thing. Police showed up at my house. It was a huge fight outside the door. Then we went to court, and the judge was like, no, like, you don't have the right to do that. And I'm like, so I have medical rights. My kid's sick. I'm trying to do what's in the best interest of letting my kid just rest. And you're telling me no? So, like, I got
time versus, wow.
Yeah, and I got a fine. And they're like, yeah, you can't do that. And I'm like, it makes no sense to me, because I'm like, if the kid's really sick, I'm like, what kid wants to be in a car for basically an hour? I'm like, so I'm just like, whatever. Like, it is what it is. So that's why you always got to check the rules and make sure you're not doing something that you think is okay, and in your head's like, makes sense, but and the court was like, no, like that's not defined in the so
the court pretty much, like, did they just go off of black and white? Do you find there's much subjective interpretation in this from the courts?
It's dependent on the judge.
Yeah.
Like, I've had a judge where like I had not really any evidence. Like, I just went off like what was like this happened, like, I could get you proof you want, or like you could go look. And the judge is like, nah, like I can clearly tell due to the situation, like,
oh wow,
you're not lying. So yeah, we're doing this, and like kind of went with it. And then I had a judge who was just like, hey, black and white, there's no between, like we're not dealing with this. So so it's really
justice
kind of
is blind.
You get,
wow.
So
damn, man. So it made me think of, it seems like now especially a lot of it is you look for permission when it comes to Emma from like a doctor or the courts. Were you like that before, or do you feel that what has happened has now made you be like, I can't do nothing without getting it checked off first?
100%, 100%. It's so when we first started co-parenting, it was really rough, and then after,
what do you mean rough? Just like not
like
cooperating?
the constant fighting and not cooperating,
okay,
and stuff like that. And then after, when COVID hit, some stuff happened, and court stuff happened, I ended up getting her the majority of the time. And then like kind of mellowed out, and like for I want to say like 5-6 months we were pretty good.
Okay.
And then another incident happened, and then I was back to court, and then like we have times where like up until not too long ago, like we were pretty decent. Like we were getting along, like we were talking. Like I said, we were doing things on occasion with the kiddo together. Like it was really good. Yeah. And I enjoyed it. And I'm like, this is all I ever wanted. And then it just like flipped when I found out she was lying to me about certain things, and then like the podcast, and like it just went downhill, and now it's just like no communication, just we're gonna go back to the way things were, and like there's no, and I know people or those who have listened to other episodes and like, well, you're big about like, hey, you need to do what's best for the kiddo. Like you get to a point where like, yes, the kiddo is very important, you want to do what's best for her, but I'm at my limit. Like I've been dealing with this for 5 years now, of just like having to look over my shoulder and never knowing when the police or CYS is going to show up at my door, and like
middle of the
where's
night
gonna happen. Yeah. And like I try very hard to, answer phone calls and talk on the phone and video chat and do everything else. But I'm to the point where, like, from now on, text message only.
Yep.
Unless my kiddo is, like, got in a bad car accident, like, you're not calling me. And it sounds
'Cause you're
terrible, but, like,
protecting.
yeah. And it's like, look, like, I know my kiddo might want to video chat me while she's at her mom's house, but, like, no, that's not happening either. Because it's never just the kiddo. It's always like,
Yeah.
well, then mom tries to, like, want to talk to me too. And, like, before, I'm like, yeah, like, if you're having issues, like, you're in your own personal life, like, I'll talk to you, I'll listen, try to be there for you. Because, like, I want to try to be a good co-parent and be there for the person. Like, still at the end of the day, like, yeah, the situation through the years has been terrible and stuff, and I may not know how to be able to solve things because you're not communicating with me. You're not telling me why you feel the way that you feel, why you do the things that you do. So I can't fix it. But, like, that's still my kiddo's mom. Like, I still want to be there for them. Like, at one point, we loved each other enough to have a kid and plan a life together. And just because things didn't work out, like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, you don't have to burn the bridge. Hellfire and brimstone.
I have given her more chances than anybody in my life, and I can't do it anymore. Like, it's
so now you just have to protect yourself with, like, nope, it's written down, it's recorded, it's permission from this. It is, because if you don't, you're ultimately, it sounds like you're leaving yourself open to be attacked again.
Yeah.
Because if you can't prove it, what do you say to the investigator? Like, because you literally have an authority figure who can reach out to you more or less at any time and say, hey, I need you to prove some stuff to me, right? Yeah. And, like, so because you have that as part of your life, like, you now, instead of just taking your kid to the doctor, you have to think, okay, can I take my kid to the doctor because of, is this bad enough? Is this good enough? You know what I mean? And, like, what an unfortunate way to have to navigate. I mean, especially medical stuff, because medical things are the scariest. You know what I mean? They're the most intense, and they keep you the most crazy. So now if you got to think, oh my God, I need to go help Emma, but shit, will I get in trouble if I do this? How much of your brain power is focused on the part that's the most important, which is Emma? And
not much.
I mean, look at you go in spite of it all. You still do what's best for Emma, even while you're trying to navigate this crazy maze of it all, man.
It's worse, like, when your kid's first born. Like, I'd say the first, like, 2 years, maybe 3, is pretty rough when it comes to, like, medical stuff, because, like, obviously the kiddo can't really talk, and like, you don't really know what's wrong. So then you're like, well, how do I judge, if I really need to, or do I need permission? So it's rough. Like, as she's gotten older, it's not as bad, because she can be like, well, Dad, like, she's running fever. I'm like, hey, kiddo, what's wrong? Oh, my belly hurts, or, like, I don't feel good, like, I hurt here. Then you're like, okay, like, it's probably just the cold, so it's not as bad. So it's easier as she's gotten older. But, like, if you're divorcing, like, when you still have a baby and you have to go through these steps, I pray for you, because that has to be super tough of trying to figure it out. Like, trying to figure out, like, well, do I need permission? Like, is this serious enough? Like, what if I go and it's just like, oh, she just has a cold? Well, now it wasn't serious. Now what am I going to have to deal with? Like, that's why, like, even if you don't like the other parent, like, do your best to communicate and just co-parent. Like, and if there's something bothering you that makes you hate the other person, just communicate it. Don't beat around the bush. Don't lie. Don't do the things that I have to deal with. Like,
don't
just
punish
be upfront.
them.
Be like, hey, this is what's wrong. This is why I don't like you. Like, can we figure out how to fix it so, like, I don't hate your face anymore, and we can co-parent?
Make boundaries.
Like, she shows that she can do it.
Yeah.
So it's like, what is happening that gets to the point where, like, you all of a sudden snap and don't, like, is it a mental issue? Like, is there something going on mentally that, like, you're having this issue, like bipolar or something, and you just don't know? Like, it's simply like you're just having a really bad, like, week or month, and, like, you just know, like, I'll deal with it. You take it out on me, and, like,
regardless of the reason,
like, I need to know so, like, we can figure something out, so we can do what we've been doing when things are good, and, like, have the best time period where, like, things are good for an extended period, and not just like, okay, like 2-3 months, and then all of a sudden it's World War VII all over again,
And that's
like, it's stressful, and it affects
that yo-yo,
the kid because,
exactly.
and, like, I went to parenting classes trying to, like, take care of the kiddo, because, like, I'm not an expert. I'm not a lady either. And, like, a lot of the videos that they show is about co-parenting. Like, kids were like, oh, like, I remember my mom, never badmouthed my dad, and then, like, my dad would badmouth my mom, and, like, now I don't have a relationship with my dad because, like, he was always so down about my mom, and, my mom tried very hard, or, like, my dad, I didn't get to see him because my mom always talked crap on him, and they found out, like, this is what really happened, and now, like, things are hard with my mom, but, me and my dad now speak, and, like, they know, and, like, then you have, like, little kids on who are like, I thought it was, my fault that mom and dad separated because I was always bad, and stuff like that. And it's
So
like,
that
you don't
perspective, man.
realize, like you aren't the kid, so you don't realize how some of this affects them. And you're like, oh, they're little, they're not going to remember.
Oh, no
No,
way.
they're going to probably remember,
Oh, yeah.
and it's going to affect them in certain ways. Like, you don't understand. And like,
Well, future relationships,
yeah. And like her being little, like right now, for some reason, the kiddo is like doing really bad in school. Not grade wise, but like not
Like
listening, not
behavior?
following directions. Yeah.
Mm.
And it's just like, yeah, it's probably because of what's going on once again. And it's like, you might just see it's like, oh, she's a kid, like she's just going through a phase. No, it could very much be the fact that like, what's going on? Well, all of a sudden, she can't see dad anymore, and nobody's telling her why. And
Yeah.
she's been through this how many times? So now she's getting like flashbacks of like,
She's talking
well,
to an
when am I going to
investigator.
see dad? Yeah, and it's just like, our kid is going through this, and like you see, it's like, oh, she's just being a kid. No, like this is how she lashes out and interacts. Because like when I was little, like when I didn't want to be at my dad's house, like I'd act up to the point that my dad would be like, I don't want to deal with you. Go back to your mom.
Interesting. And you remember doing
my
that
dad,
specifically?
oh yeah, because like I
Wow.
know, because like I was a teenager at that point, because like I learned after a while, like, and like I would like put my dad against my mom, or my mom against my dad to get certain things that I wanted, and like so.
And like that's such a normal thing for a kid to do in that situation.
Yeah.
Because as they start to grow up, man, they're gonna figure out ways to get the things they think they need. And if putting their parents against each other because they're constantly fighting is a way to do it, they'll poke the bear. They will. Yeah. And then what do you think they're going to do in their own relationships down the road when they want something out of their spouse? They're going to poke the spouse and try to get them to get, it's a long, life is super long, man. And I tell you, I still tell jokes from when I was 10 years old. So,
well, I mean, to be fair, haven't really become adults. I mean, we're pretty, but
yeah, we're doing great. Sorry, go on. But it's
my thing is
important, man.
Like the situation that I'm currently in, like, it probably could have been solved simply by the other half being like, hey, I may not like him, but I've known him long enough that he would never do such a thing, and I know that situation, like that was done with the other half on their side. There's like, hey, I overreacted, my bad. Yeah. And then it was kind of like swept underneath the rug and kind of dropped. Was that done for me? No. Because, why would it? And like, my thing is like, look, as much as I may not like you or we may not get along and stuff like that, end of the day, like, you would be losing out time with our kiddo. So I'm going to be like, nah, like, even though our kiddo said something, or maybe you put it in their head, like, it is what it is. I was just like, that's wild. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, like, you just gotta do the best you can to co-parent and communicate and work things out. You don't have to be best friends. You don't have to talk daily, but like, it affects your kid in the long run. And like, my thing is, in the future, like, what kind of relationship is this gonna have if the kid ever asks, like, hey, why do you not talk to mom, or why don't you talk to dad, or like, I remember this when I was little. Like, I really want to know. Like, they have a right to know.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, then at that point, do you tell them? Do you say, don't worry about it? Like. Because
what do you think is like one of the, if you had to, and I know your relationship is unique to you, of course, but like, where is the most likely place to find common ground in this type of scenario? Like, if you just shred away all the layers and really think, if you just had to find one thing that, like, listen, if we can cooperate about anything at all, let's cooperate about this. Like, what do you think is that? What do you think that would be?
Honestly, I would say in the long run, it should just be the kid. That should be the common ground.
Well, of course.
Put the kid first. But
there's a multi-facets to the kid.
Yeah, if you have to select something specifically that you can always agree on.
Like, where do you start? Where do you start?
I would say the custody schedule probably would be the best thing.
Okay.
To have set in stone that you guys can agree on. Because that at least gives the kid, like, some kind of, like, norm in her life that she knows, like, hey, this day I'm going to dad's house for these many days, and this day I'm going to mom's house for these many days. Like, obviously vacations, come to play whenever, so I'll switch it up a bit, but like, at least something in the kid's life is stable. And that's one thing that, like, me and my ex always agreed on, that we've never had issues, is holidays.
That's awesome.
Not once have we ever fought about holidays, like
common ground.
Christmas. Yeah, it's always been good. Like, she gets her Christmas Eve, and I get it later in the night, and then I have Christmas, Thanksgiving. Like, technically Thanksgiving is mine. She's like, you can have her for Thanksgiving and stuff like that. But like, I'm always like, hey, I'm done Thanksgiving. Would you like her for a couple hours? And like, I'll go. Like, do I have to? No, because technically it's my day. But I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, your parents and family want to see her too. So like, I'm gonna drive out there. I'll meet you. You take her for a few hours, and then I usually get her back. And then like I later in the night. Like that's
Yeah.
something we've always agreed on and made change. And it's just like, if we can do that, why can't we do this for everything? You know what I'm saying?
No, it's
But
true.
like,
It's the
baby
example.
steps.
Well, and that's where the
But
starting point is, right?
yeah,
You build from that
and
one good place.
unfortunately, there's just some people that, for whatever reason, whether it's mental, or just they just truly hate you for some reason,
There's something.
that unfortunately that may never happen.
Mm.
In my shoes, I really truly feel like it's never going to happen for me. Like
Oh,
this is going to be something for the rest of my
life's
life that
long.
I have to deal with,
No.
and
I know it's very
there's going to
likely,
be.
but I doubt it.
I mean, I used to say that, and I was like, look, as she
Life's
gets
long, man.
older, like like she'll grow up and things will change.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point, with how old she is, after this many years, very few things have gotten better.
Yeah.
Very few things. I will give her credit when it's due, and like
And you always have.
communication for some things have gotten better.
And
I
there you
mean, the
go.
whole when the kiddo wanted to do things together on
Mm-hmm.
occasion, like go get ice cream or like go clothing shopping, like um, that was brought up to me, something that I would never bring up because I'm just like, look, we're separated, like it's not something we should do.
Yeah.
Um, because I figured like it was just inappropriate. And I didn't really want to fight, and when it was brought up to me, I'm just like, that's a really big step for her. So
And
like I'll
that's
give her credit for
huge.
that. Like
Yeah.
she put the kiddo first. She's like, hey, like like we can still occasionally go do something, and like
Mm-hmm.
and then we see how it ended now, but like it's
But it's happened once. Peace can be
it's.
reached,
I
man.
mean, yeah, it happened a few times, but it's just like I think at this point when I figured, hey, you know what, we've done a lot of growing, things are mellowing out. Like, yeah, we might fight on a case like because you're
Emma's
never
older.
not gonna fight.
Of
Yeah,
course
like
not.
you're still gonna fight occasionally over certain things, and it is what it is, because everything's gonna be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
But like I figured things would be mellow. We wouldn't have to go through the situation we're going through now. But
Yeah.
as we can see,
But that's where you
that's
keep
not the
pushing
case.
forward.
And it's
Exactly.
never, yeah. And you know what? You get to a point where it's like, look, I can't control it. Obviously, this is not ever going to change. You just got to deal with it and go through it. So that's kind of what I'm doing. And, hopefully after this is said and done, and some other steps are taken, hopefully things go in the right direction and I won't
Hell
have to deal
yeah.
with this anymore and everything will be text message done. And just not give in because I'm burnt out. I'm burnt out of just having to deal with this. I'm burnt out of the kiddo having to deal with this and being who knows what kind of issues she's gonna get from all this. And
Well, and
I just want her to
hopefully,
be a
yeah.
kiddo and just live her life and not have to like just have fun and be like, hey,
Yep.
I'm going to dad's today, and not be like,
Yep.
oh, hey, by the way, suddenly you're not going to dad's house. We can't tell you why, and then all
Mm.
of a sudden,
You'd want to
like
give
it's
her
just
some
not fair to her.
stability, man, so that you can.
Yeah,
Well, because honestly, getting Emma stability only gets you stability, also. Because your life isn't also
yeah,
up in the air because you're not constantly waiting for the other shoe to fall. And if
yeah,
you're stable, then you can also give a stable place for Emma. The hard part is you can only do what's in your control, what's in your power. So until the
yeah,
courts decide, you can't do dick. And that's the part that just sucks the most, man. Um,
yeah. But you'll get there. I mean, it's
well,
difficult in the beginning.
absolutely.
It was rough, man. Like I was always just like every time I hear a car door, I jump and be like,
Ugh,
who's here? Like what? And I was just waiting for the knock on my
waiting for
door.
the knock.
And like it got to the point where the kiddo at one point, when she started talking and understanding more, like, and I'd have people show up at my door because like we would get solicitors sometimes for like energy
Yeah, yeah.
or Bible stuff, and there'd be a knock at the door, and there's probably 2 instances. She'd be like, "Is that the police? Is that the COS lady?"
Oh,
And I'm like,
God.
kiddo, like you shouldn't know. I'm like, you're
Yeah.
fine, and like that really broke my heart. And since then, she's been pretty good about that and stuff. But it's just like now she's even older. If she was doing that when she's like, 4-ish, like how is it affecting her now? And what is in her head now that she thinks? And like kids don't understand certain things, and they're going to interpret things certain ways. And when I go in, I know like when they talk to me, like they'll ask questions like, "Well, hey, this is what's going on. This is what we were told. Like this is what we've investigated so far. Why do you think this could have happened?" And kids, they make up stories in their head, interpret things different ways
Oh, yeah.
compared to what we do. And one instance is my ex brought the kiddo to breakfast at Dunkin' Donuts before school one morning, and they had Dunkin' for breakfast, and then and stuff like that. And her mom always gets coffee, And she came back and she's like, well, the bus driver stopped by Dunkin' Donuts and got coffee and got us all donuts and stuff.
Wow.
And then like they were yelling at one of the kids because they were jumping on the bed and not listening. And I'm just like, well, first off, kiddo, I know you're full of beans because no bus driver is gonna stop at Dunkin' Donuts with children in the thing. But like that's just how she interprets things.
Yeah,
and like
and that's how she tells the story.
my thing is I was being told like, well, the kiddo said it this time, and I'm like, well, because of things, I'm like, the only thing I can think of like is when she showers. I'm like, because I drag her off because she's terrible at it, and I'm just like, cool. And it's like, how are you as a parent who is in my situation who goes through this? Like, if you don't have another parent who is willing to stick up for you, it makes life a lot harder when you are a guy trying to take care of your daughter. Because in their head, like if you're drying them with a towel, like they might say something like in the situation I'm in, they're like in their head, they're not thinking like, oh well, dad's just drying me off because that's what they have to do.
Yeah.
And there's a towel, like they're just like, oh hey, this happened. And now obviously as adults, you're gonna be like, what?
Yep.
And instead of just like calling the person and being like, hey,
we
just heard this, what's going on? Like, what's going on? Especially after the amount of times that I've been through this, like you would think at some point they'd be like, hey, let's just call and find out. You know what I'm saying?
Seriously.
And
how many times you got to be proven innocent?
Yeah. And my thing is like, look, as much as you may not like the other person, like I said before, like you got to stand up for each other. Like, because end of the day, this is your kid together and your child was not asked to be put in this situation. Your child is not a weapon.
Yep.
It is not something to be used against the other parent because it's going to hurt them. Because at the end of the day, the only thing you're doing is not only hurting your kid. And yes, you may be hurting the other parent, but in the long run, you're hurting yourself because as the kiddo gets older, if they get to the point at 16, 17, 18, they're like, hey, why do you, mom, hate each other so much? And I remember this and that. Like, can I have more backstory? If you're like me and who keeps track of everything in case that day ever comes and you want to have your side of the story, there's a good possibility that this kid might not all of a sudden start talking to the other parent and that relationship was ruined. Not because the parent told, hey, this is my side of the story. And now the child's like, okay, well, I heard both sides. I see what really happened. I don't want to speak to this other parent anymore. That's on you because you went down this road of like, I just want to hurt the other parent. I don't care the outcome in the long run. Like, you only have yourself to blame in it, and it stinks. And I really hope it never comes to that in my situation.
Yeah.
But with the way things are going, I honestly don't know. And like, it's
because if it's tough. A battle all the way until they're an adult, like at some point, they're just going to want to know or they'll just go away. Because you see that mostly, right? The kids, when they're old enough, they either pick a side or they get so sick of it, they're just like, okay, y'all go fuck off, man. I'm old enough now. I'm sick of your fighting, and I'm not going to be around it anymore. And like, there's a way to avoid both of those, and that's just by admitting that just because you two don't like each other anymore, that has nothing to do with how you interact when the kid's around. Yep. It's part of being a grown-up. It's part of being an adult. And it's hard. The worst part is it's hard to do, right? If somebody says something that you're already don't really like them, and then they say something, if the kid wasn't there, you'd probably get in a fight because that's just, we feel emotions. We're humans. Like, hey, fuck you, man. But when the kid's in the room, like my parents cussed, but they didn't cuss in front of us. We weren't allowed to cuss in front of them. Okay, and if it happened, it was addressed in a way just like, hey, do better. Like, be a better person, right? But ultimately, time and place is so appropriate. And when you're trying to co-parent, time and place is the most appropriate. Because I tell you, I remember stuff from when I was very young. Very young. I remember fights that I had with my folks and fights they had with each other. Now, my folks stay together and they, long and happy, and I was blessed and raised well. But anybody who thinks that kids are not affected by the world that they find themselves a part of is crazy, man. If parents fight a lot, kids will too. Or there'll be a shell. There's very often an in-between. You can a lot of times know like, hey, what's going on in this kid's house? How come they're acting this way? It's not always the parents' fault. Kids can be shits, don't get me wrong. But there's reasons, man. They're smarter than we give them credit for. And this kid, my kid, is only 4 months old, and he already is learning how to cry on purpose. If he doesn't get enough titty, he'll do it. And I'm like, you're not actually upset. You just want more boob. And if a 4-month-old can do it, trust me, every year after that, they only get better and better, man. and they're going to get smarter. And in your case, Emma will never stop growing up.
No, she's already pretty damn smart, which scares me because she already knows how to play us against each other. Like, oh, well, when I pick her up, a lot of times when her mom gets her, it's just like, well, dad didn't feed me or mom didn't feed me. And it's not because she didn't get fed. Oh, she got fed. It's just because she's hungry and she knows what the time it is. Oh, well, I probably won't get anything to eat. So if I just say, hey, mom or dad didn't feed me, well, they're like, okay, well, let's go home and get some food.
Wow. And because that's her language, right? She's learned that language. Instead of saying, hey, I'm hungry, she says, hey, I want food now.
Yep. So it's just like, hey, she knows, and it's just crazy. And my thing is they're very smart, and they're only going to get smarter, especially as technology gets better and stuff like that. They'll learn at younger ages, and it's just crazy, and they know.
Well, think about how kids can now Google, like, Child Protective Services stuff. There's, like, Reddits and Discords fully dedicated to how to, like, fuck with parents and fuck with CPS, and it's just a very different world, man. And stories, and it's just like the least you can, the more you can shield your kid from that negative part of the world, the better. And I think that was like a big thing of what today was all about. It's like, whether it's medical or bad relationships or fights and arguments that are not for the kid, like, it's all for the reason we keep them from it is so that we can protect them from the bad stuff, because real life will slap these kids across the face before we know it. And the second it happens, man, the second a kid learns that there's a CPS Discord, that you don't go back from that. That knowledge is with them for the rest of their lives, right? So the whole point is, like, protect these kids. Like, stop putting selfish endeavors to the best of our ability, because let's admit, we're all humans, but to the best of our abilities, put that shit down and do it for the kid. And it
can be tough,
It can be tough, but do your best. It should happen more times than it doesn't. That's the rule, right? Like, you should be able to put your shit aside more times than you don't for your kids. Because what, like, completely different in terms of problems, but with my mental stuff, it's hard sometimes to always be as present as I want to be. But I'll tell you, there's no world where I don't push it down to the best of my ability. I will never stop trying. There's nothing in this world that is bad enough to stop me from doing the best for him. And if Lindsay and I, well, the only way it would happen if she ever died and I was a single father, no. If it ever happened, man, I promise you, that kid takes #1 priority. And if we didn't, well, that's a whole different thing that I can't admit to because it's admissible. But the point is, it's like, it's hard, but you do it anyway. Just because it's hard doesn't mean you do it. Just because you're mad doesn't mean you don't calm down. If you hate somebody, doesn't matter. None of that shit matters because you made person. The second you make person, all of your personal stuff, put it aside. Bury it down, swallow it like the tumor it will become. But ultimately, that's what you do. Those tumors are from having a kid. So.
Yeah, ulcers, the stress.
Bloody diarrhea. All of that is from burying it down and taking care of your kid. But there's no other option, because we started with medical, right? There's no other option besides take care of kid. So when your kid was hurt, 10x from the dog, right? And it's ultimately, you probably could have had a bloody nub and you would have got her to the hospital, right? Like, there's nothing in this world that'll stop you. So because you can do it for the extreme versions, try to do it for, like, the everyday stuff. You and her know you can put that shit down and have peace.
Yeah.
Right?
That's
it takes two.
Crazy the most.
Yeah, because you've done it more than once. Like, in our friendship, there's been multiple times where you're like, dude, things are great. Like, peace has been found, right? And then when that goes away, holy balls. That's the worst part.
Yeah.
That's the childish stuff.
The biggest thing is just be honest with the other person, no matter what it is, and you can work something out. Yep. Now, like, that's my biggest pet peeve, is just lying. Like, don't lie to me. Just be honest. Just be upfront and tell me. And then, like, it wouldn't be in an argument and be in the situation that we get in. Like, that's 9 times out of 10 when there is a fight between co-parenting, it's either because of lying or just selfishness. Yeah. That's really what it boils down to. And it's just,
I believe it.
End of the day, the kid comes first, and I remember all the fights that my stepdad and my mom used to get into when I was younger, and they separated. Like I remember all of it, all the fighting, and just like remembering, like I don't want to be like that if I ever have a kid. And it was what made me never want to have a kid, to be honest.
Oh wow, really?
And
Those
yeah,
memories.
because I'm just like I don't want to have a kid and go through the crap that I went through. I'm
Yeah.
like I if I do, I definitely want to be better than my parents throughout the years.
Good for you,
And
man.
like now I'm going through the same thing, and that's I think that's a big part of why I try so hard despite everything, and I try to push through and do what I can for the kiddo, and just even when I'm angry, like look, if I'm still angry tomorrow, then I'll say something to her. If not, I'm
Good
just
for
letting
you.
it go.
Yep.
And it's difficult some days, a lot of days, honestly, at this
I
point
bet.
anymore.
I
But
bet.
like the kiddo's still great, and it goes to show when the other person keeps poking the bear and trying to make you out to be this monster. And it's like something I saw online is that people always talk about the monster you are, but not what they did to get you there.
Yeah.
And it's true. Like it's always my fault, and they never talk about like, well, I did this and I did that and I did this, because accountability.
It's always like, whoa,
And
man, why are you so
I'm
mad? It's like,
and I'm not perfect, like I've done things that I screwed up on, and but when it's constant and blatant, and it's just like we've had conversations about this, like there's a point of like, oh, okay, like I was just super angry once or twice, fine, I get it, you went to the extreme, but understandable, to where 10, 11 times, there's no excuse for it anymore. You're blatantly just being
seriously.
an a-hole.
Yeah.
And it's just, end of the day, this affects the kiddo more than anything.
Yeah.
And just get help.
Yeah.
And luckily I got you to help me through shit when I'm down in the dumps or like stressed out, and like I can just vent, and I was like, cool, I'm good. All right, cool. You made me see that I'm not crazy. And
Well, it shows the importance of a community, right? Because ultimately, if you're just in your head and you're a sensible person, most sensible people will try to assign a little bit of blame to themselves because it's healthy, right?
Yeah.
Like, no, most people don't think like I am perfect, because that's ridiculous. Now, if somebody does think they're perfect, you're probably having a fight with them because that type of personality trait. But now imagine you are beating yourself up because you're trying to understand why all this bad shit is happening to you, and you have nobody else saying like, hey man, you're good. What's happening to you isn't fair, and what people are doing to you is fucked up. And like not hearing that from another voice, that's a hard and dark place to be in, man. Because ultimately, good people blame themselves. And they would, the worst case scenario is when that blame turns into proof as to why bad stuff happens to them. And you and me know that better than anybody, right? We look for what is the justification for her being a bitch. It's like, well, I must have yelled at her too much, or I didn't do this good enough. And when you get to that place, it's hard to get out of unless someone's like, hey, you're awesome, because it's just... So the point is, it's community is huge. Like me and you have our talks, we hang out, friendships. Don't isolate, man. Because whether you're co-parenting or not co-parenting and just dealing with struggles and pain at home while trying to be a parent or a father, like you can't do it alone. Like yesterday, something happened where I got pretty pissed, righteously and rightfully. But I did know that this person that slighted me, I'm not going to yell at them. Are you kidding? I love this person. This is just an unfortunate thing that happened that made me fly off the handle. So instead of flying off on her, I called my mom. Yeah, that's right. I called my mom and I said, hey, mom, I need you to just listen for a second. So, she did. And I just, I went off, man. I was like, can you believe it? And the point is, without her, without that community, I would have stayed in that rage, man. I would have had no one to vent to. I would have had nobody to help me feel a little bit better. And probably two things would have happened. I either would have called that person and blew the fuck up on him, which probably would have ruined the relationship, or I wouldn't have, and I would have just been pissed at him, and that probably would have ruined the relationship.
Yeah. Or you take it out somebody that you don't mean it. Like,
there you go.
With my friend who just visited for a week, like, I almost canceled it. And it was like, look, like I'm going through some stuff. I'm really down and dumb. So trying to figure out like, what did I do this time to like cross the line and stuff. And, they came and we had a good time. And she was like, look, like, don't worry about the comments being left. Like, because I was being stalked the whole time of things and posts about the kiddo and things. And it's just like, look, you she's not known me super long, but long enough to know like you're a good person. And like hearing that from someone who hasn't known you a super long time
Yep.
made me feel really good. And she's like, look, like you go out of your way for all these people we don't know. Like you did this for me to do all this other stuff that changed my life. And you
Wow.
know, having friends is really important. People that like believe in you and trust you and push you and like help you push those thoughts out, because I know if they wouldn't have came, I would have been here and I'd just been angry and miserable and fuming the whole time. And then I probably, when things settled, all that resentment I've had this entire time, and just being angry and miserable and like dealing with this, probably would have been then taken out on my ex, and just like
Oh, good
in a
point.
way that
Yeah.
wouldn't have been productive and wouldn't have helped the situation. And like thanks to my friend visiting and me having a good time and showing me like, hey, yeah, you're going through this, but like there's always good, and I'm gonna help you see that. And like we had a blast.
Ugh.
I did things I haven't done in ages, and like I got to sit one night and was like, look, like I'm going through this and it sucks. I'm probably gonna have to deal with this the rest of my life. But like I now have to make a decision of like, what do I do from here? I'm like, look, from now on, text message only. Like you are to the point where you are enough of an adult that there is no excuse for this anymore. So seeing someone who I barely know and say, look, you're a good person and like we've been having fun, you've done so much for me and you've done this and like seeing the proof in person of like everything I said about, and being like, no, like you are justified in the way you feel. That is the biggest weight off my shoulder, because like you have like I have
I
you to
love
talk
that.
to, but like you've never really actually gotten to see all the evidence in person. And like for
Yeah.
them to be here and actually like see the papers and stuff and being like,
Holy shit.
yeah, no, okay, like I get it. And I'm just like, I'm not crazy. Like
Yeah.
I'm justified. It's not me overthinking things. And maybe in the long run, it is truly me. Like you have no idea what friends can do for you. And I'm telling you, if you're going through divorce and having to deal with co-parenting stuff and it's a really bad situation, like having friends is going to make the biggest difference
Yeah.
to help you get to a point where either you can vent them and they cope, and don't get you friends who are going to tell you just what you want to hear,
Yes.
because they think you need to have those friends that will tell you, even if you're in the wrong, they're like, hey dude, I know you're mad about this situation, but you know what, this time it is 100% your fault. Like you told her like she's a piece of shit and you know what, she deserves nothing. If you can't manage, go eat a bag of dicks. That
No.
100% is you being an a-hole, and you know what, you're in the wrong here. Not just like, oh no, dude, 100% you're right, even though they know you're wrong.
Because that's not going to help them, right?
No.
That's just that'll make you feel good temporarily, and then your life will suck long term. It's just stop. If you really care for somebody, you should be honest with them. You should.
Yeah.
No time and place, because time and place is important. But I'll tell you, there ain't nothing that'll end a friendship faster with me than if I find out someone's lying. Because that's the one thing you have 100% control over. There's no world except for brain injury where lying is an accident. Because if you didn't know, it's not a lie. If you didn't know, ignorance is forgiveness. But if you lie, that's a choice. Oh shit, I did know, but I didn't want to make you mad. Oh, because lying isn't going to piss me off, right? And it's like, don't protect me from the truth. The truth is the truth. There's a way to deliver it, but at the end of the day, man, people deserve it. Because if somebody is fat, right, like unhealthily fat, not just big, like actually has something that will hurt them, and you're fine, you're perfect, and then they die at 50, did you help them? You know what I mean? Like if someone's smoking crack and you're like, hey man, I understand why, and then they die, did you help them? They smoking crack, man. Now those are extreme examples, but it proves the point. Have friendships that will treat you with respect and honesty, and
you can do it in a way that's not rude. Don't just be like, hey, you're fat, stop eating.
Hey,
like,
fatty.
Hey, you're overweight. Like, I'm really worried about your health.
Yeah,
like,
man.
You know, if it's not their fault, like it's a true medical condition, well then, hey, like there's nothing they can do. But at least you might not know. So just bring up like, hey, I'm really concerned about you. Like, is there anything I can do to help you? You know, and it's like, no, I have medical condition. Okay, but now you know.
But and the thing is you said it. You cared enough to make somebody uncomfortable. It's not about being like a busybody and be like, you know, you really shouldn't smoke. It's just like, hey, man, I love you a lot. And because of what I believe, I think you should stop because I don't want you to. Now, those are kind of like, let people do. If they want to smoke, let them smoke. But the point, if someone's actually doing something damning, your job as a friend is to say, stop being stupid. You know? And it's just, again, we land on a lot of similar points because when it comes to relationships, raising a kid, it's all very similar stuff, man. You need good people who will take care of you and love you and be honest with you. And if you do all of those things to your kid also, they're going to be raised well. They're going to be smart. They're going to be curious. They're going to want to know stuff. And they're not going to think that this world is dark and broken and full of hate, right? Too many kids are being told that the world sucks. And I just disagree. I mean, parts of it suck, don't get me wrong, but the parts that don't are amazing, you know? So when it comes to a kid, we protect them from the bad shit and we do our best to encourage the good. And that includes co-parenting, you know?
Because that's how they get raised. And then they see it and like, okay, well, my relationships, if we have kids, this is how I treat the other person.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you got to show them like, hey, we didn't work out. Me and your mom hate each other. You know, we wish we would get hit by buses, but we still did our best to take care of you. Sometimes we fought, but it's going to happen, sweetheart. Like, cool. And they go up and they're like, hey, look, we didn't work out, you know, but we have a kid together. We need to put our, you know, differences aside and raise this kid. And then that continues a cycle. Now, like, if you're to the point where like, I never want to be like my parents, and then you're being exactly like your parents, that came from somewhere.
Yeah,
you know
perspective.
Like, you didn't want it, and now you're doing the same thing. And it's just like, well, where did you go wrong? Maybe you need to reflect and be like, well, I'm being like my parents here, so maybe I should change. Because it happened for a reason.
Perspective. You know, for me, so much of it is maturity, man. Like, as you get older, like, you just become more mature, and all of those kind of like petty, small things stop mattering. Like, when you're a teenager and somebody's, I mean, I didn't care because I had boots, but someone scuffs your shoes, like, that's a really big deal. It shouldn't be as big a deal as a grown up. Like, you have more important shit than your shoes that you can worry about. And that's where that maturity, that's where that perspective comes in. The hard part is if you get stuck, because, sorry, I'm thinking quick. So one thing that I find interesting is a lot of times when people are in like an adverse event, divorce, trauma, pain, medical stuff, whatever it may be, a lot of times their clock will just kind of stop and pause, right? Like they don't really evolve or grow anymore until after that event, that trauma event has stopped. And then all of a sudden they go from 20 to like 35 years old because they were immature that whole time. And then all of a sudden it stops and it's like, wow, I just lived the life of several. And then it's just like, wow, where'd my 20s go? And I said that to say something else. But like, that's kind of similar to a divorce or especially an unhealthy divorce, is if at the time of that start of the trauma, start of the bad divorce with the fighting and stuff, essentially just froze somebody in an immature state and they never really get out of, even though it's been 3, 4, 5 years, it's still only been a month since the divorce in their mind. Like nothing has actually happened. So they're stuck in 2018 for 5 years. And every single day is just the day after the divorce because they're just stuck. I don't know. It kind of popped in my head, man. It just seems really appropriate because she still treats you like the man who was worthy of divorce. I can't think of how better to say it, but she treats you like nothing has changed. And that's insane. There's no way nothing has changed.
Like, even though we broke up and stuff like that, like, yeah, it's true because the first year, like, that's kind of how I was. Like, I just dwelled on that. And, like, she's never going to change. And then over time, like, for a while, I was like, this is how it's going to be the rest of my life. Like, this. And, I mean, I will say it's still really bad, to be honest. But I will give her credit, and I can't go into certain things because that's her personal stuff.
Of course not.
But, like, with certain things that she's done and certain things with her being raised that she's realized, like, it has made a difference. Like, she has said, like, oh, this happened. Like, now I realize this. And this.
That's great.
And I will say that she has matured in certain ways, but in the ways that I really need her to. So situations like that we're in now wouldn't happen. And in situations where you're going to lie to me when you need money instead of just coming to me, like, that's the part that I really need to have fixed. Like, I need to know, like, is it a mental issue? And like, okay, cool. Like, get medication, or like, if you really don't want a medication, at least I know from like, okay, look, like, you have mental issue problems. This is what I'm going to have to deal with on occasion. I can see these signs coming up and we can work with it. Or like, hey, this is in your past. This is something that now you realize you're going to have to work through it. Hey, I understand that. I will be here to try to help you if I can. If you don't want my help, fine. You're not my responsibility anymore. But because I don't have those things, I'm just in a constant state of like, okay, now we're fighting. What happened this time? Or like, okay, you did this. Is it just simply because this is just you and you're a bad person and you just hate my guts? Or is it just because this is the way you think things are supposed to be and you don't know any better? Like, that
But
is
it's all
the worst
assumptions.
part of co-parenting. Yeah, because you just don't know.
You don't know.
But at least if you have something to work with, that's the best thing. And I don't know if it was a podcast or two ago when they made the comment like, you don't tell the truth and like you need to tell the whole truth. And like I went on, TikTok and made things, but like the biggest thing for me was like, I don't know the truth because you don't tell me. I don't know why you're mad at me. I don't know why you have these flip out fits. I don't know what I can do to make things better. I don't know why, if you're still hurting, if you can't get over something, like what is going on that like we just can't be functional like we are sometimes. And then all of a sudden something flips in you and you're just this raging, crazy, like I'm out to want to ruin your life. Like
Cops
I
are
don't know.
called. Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you
and it's hard.
navigate it,
Yeah. And it's just like, it's why I think in the long run, by a lot of people, when they see the situation I'm in, and I'm always like, look, you just need to do your best to be able to co-parent. Like, people get mad at me. They're like, you're still so nice to her. You deal with so much. And like, we don't. And I'm like, end of the day, like, there is something wrong, whether it's just the way she is, or it's mental, or something she went through as a child that just stuck with her. Like, I can't really hold that against her. And like, we have a kid together. End of the day, that is still somebody that is like family, that we had a child together. And and it's like people are like, well, that's not, you never got married. Like just because you have a kid, it doesn't. I'm like, but
but it's your beliefs, man. It's your
like,
belief.
That's still family. I'm not going to give up on her simply because she's dealing with stuff. And like, maybe one day she'll realize and she'll get better, or maybe this will be for the rest of our lives, even when we don't have to talk to each other. I'm like, but I can't be that person who's just going to be like, no, I'm just giving up on you. Because I know someone who I love to death. They've never had good in their life. Like people they've been with, people they married, parents, like it's been very rough. And I'm like, I can't give up on this person. And we've had fights and other people are like, look, like you're in a situation, we don't agree with it, like you're crazy. But I'm like, you don't know the full story because I can't disclose it to you. I'm like, but at the same time, I get where you're coming from. But it's like, as long as I'm happy and I'm willing to deal with this, like that's what matters in the long run. And I'm to the point where like, yes, I want to co-parent and I want to do the best, but I'm to the point after 5 years of this, there's nothing I can do anymore. Like if it comes to the point where like, look, we can only talk by text. It sucks. I don't really want this. I still want to be able to try to help her to get through whatever the hell is going on. Yep. But if you're not willing to meet me halfway, what can I do?
Yep. Well, you can exactly. You can't control her. You can't control her actions.
I'll keep being the bad guy, and I'll keep letting the fake accounts comment about how much of a piece of crap I am, and stalk my life, and try to ruin friendships and relationships and whatever else, and be like, look, if that's what you need, that's what you need. I'm not playing into it anymore.
Good for you, man. Live your own life.
Over it. Yeah.
Good. And this is proof in the pudding, because ultimately, from the fire, born the phoenix. And if this podcast can help people get there faster, then hey, that's what we're doing, man. Because experience, community, people, you got to have all of this in your life, whether you're happy or going through struggles, man. It's important. It takes a village just to have a normal life, let alone raise a kid. So if you want to do the best for your kid, you got to do the best for you. And I don't know, I like this one. We started off with the medical stuff. And then ultimately, it led straight into what's the most important, man. Be a good person, and then have good people in your life, and live happily. I promise you'll smile so much more the second you cut off the people who are unwilling to be good. Exactly, man. So it's just, we just hitting about an hour, and I can tell you, I love doing these things. The more he grows, the more perspective I get in the story.
The more you talk about,
well, exactly. And I just, what's that?
And the comparisons we can have, like, oh, my son did this today. Like, oh, my kiddo never did that. Like,
it's so fun because the older he gets, like now we had some medical chats to talk, right? So the older this kid gets, the more we get to just interact with him. And he just ate his first real food a couple weeks ago. I made him some roast and oatmeal. All pureed and, all that good stuff. But so it's just great, man. Being a father is fantastic. And I think one thing that's so cool that our podcast shows really well is that being a father is so fantastic that even in an unfortunate at times situation like our boy Story here, you still will do anything just to see the joy on your kid's face, man. That is cardinal wiring in our fucking brains. Cardinal, not cardinal. Cardinal's a bird. Carnal, it means ancient, old, right? That is hardwired. Most of the things in this world we will walk away from. But I bet you, other than the extreme example or the extreme side of it, walking away from a kid, one of the hardest. Yeah. So don't give up. You're not alone as long as you got the internet and a door to walk out of. Prisoners, I'm sorry. But don't give up. Find happy. Find the people in your life and do good. Story, you got anything for the people?
Hey, always reach out to us as well. Leave a comment.
Yep.
If you need help or somebody, me or Markus will reach out. You know,
we're here.
So.
We love talking, obviously. So if you liked what you saw, hit like. If you want to see more of it, hit subscribe. But most importantly, what is most important, Story?
Love each other.
Love each other. Much love, my friends. All right, say bye, Story.
Bye, peoples.
Bye.